It was so cute.
I gotta get some with the new logo.
She's got hiccups again.
Can I have one of those?
She's got hiccups all the time.
I only made one, dude.
Do what?
What?
I remember asking for one of those like 2 years ago.
You didn't make the cut. That's the fact. What's up, guys?
Hey. Got a new team, Boston Bruins.
We're not close enough in order to fit on the same portrait mode. There we go.
Playing now?
Yeah.
How's things? Played last night.
Oh, good deal. Well, hello to those viewing online. There's gonna be a few of us viewing online. My family and Scott and Laura usually tune in. I'm guessing Pearl.
Yeah, she's
And-
working hard. Trying
yeah.
to catch up for last week.
Hey, I get it. I get it. Amber came down with something. And a couple of the kids, I think, are starting to come down with it too. Per use, I had it for about a day. And I can't afford to get sick. So literally. But yeah, and then Adam and Ashley are on the road. They're traveling back up here. But yeah. So there'll be a few folks live streaming this evening. So we are on faith of the fruits of the Spirit, but before I jump in there, I want to share with you a couple of thoughts. Well, one thought that's been on my mind this week and late last week. You all know 1 Corinthians 10:13, maybe. It's the verse that says, "There's no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man, but God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you're able, will with the temptation also make a way to escape that you may be able to bear it." Who was that verse? To whom was that verse written? It's not a trick question.
Church.
The church, a community, a community. The Lord's Prayer, Our Father, who is in heaven, may your name be exalted as holy, or hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. It's a community prayer. Then we kind of transition over to Galatians, where Paul is writing this letter to whom? The church, a community. A community. In fact, he's talking about the fruit of the Spirit, and then verse 25, if we live in the Spirit, let's walk in the Spirit. Don't be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. He's talking about a community. A community. Sorry about the chairs. Feel free, grab them, whatever you, yep.
Rocket forward.
They have a little.
Jay, can you help Cheryl, please?
Just bring in the horseshoe a little bit. Actually, let's extend the horseshoe this way.
If I don't want to sue us.
Tough luck. All right.
Already emptied the chair.
Yeah. We can always get creative as more folks come in. Our chairs were moved by the homeschool group, and typically they put them back on the wall, but they didn't this time for whatever reason. I don't know where they are, so I just grabbed these from that classroom, and I'm sure they're here in the building somewhere. So, oh
They got
boy,
organized.
what's that?
They got organized.
They got organized. Organized away. What do we got? We got a comment here. Oh, cool comments. Miker, Adam, hi. Well, hello. All right. So anyways, let us not be desirous of vainglory, provoking one another, envying one another. Who's he talking about? The church, the community. We live in an individualist society. We think about ourselves, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but more than ever, when we think of self, we think of individual. We don't tend to think of groups to whom we belong, and we don't tend to identify with groups first. We tend to identify as individuals first. Nothing wrong with that. That's just the way our culture's shaped. But I will say that with the advent of technology, and I'm talking not just Zoom and FaceTime and all that, but cars and highways, even horse and buggy. You guys know that towns used to be shaped like, well, nervous systems, right? At the center, you had your town center. You had your church, all at the center of the town, and it radiated out from that center.
Church, town hall, post office, and grocery store.
Right, it's all right there. And you went into town, right? And then you retreated to the outskirts, but it was all one nerve center. And then when highways and roads came in, we said, wow, we don't need to do that anymore. And so because of individualism, everything from the post office to the grocery store, to the town hall, to the church has become, they've become competitive for the individuals. Everything is competitive. Come to our church, you'll like ours better. Why? Because now you have a car, you can drive to any of them in the next, within 10 miles in 10 minutes. Grocery stores, same thing. Competition. You say, what are you talking about, Britt? Well, Paul is talking to churches. These are communities of Jesus followers who didn't have such a sense of individualism, for better or for worse. There's pros and cons, but here's a point of that. They leaned on each other a lot more.
Fewer resources.
Yes, exactly right, Kim. One person gardened, the other person, farmed, about the same thing. But let's say farmed, the other person raised sheep, the other person raised goats. You get the idea. I've listed 2 trades by 4 different descriptions, but you might say, and then as time went on, you have butchers, bakers, candlestick makers, cobblers, etc. But you have people who have something to offer to the community because this fiat currency wasn't quite the way it is now. You get the idea. And because of technology, it's so much easier to say, I can just go here and get everything I need. And so I am my own hub of resources. I got paid. I can get in my car, hop on the road, go to the store of my choosing, get what I want, and come back. Everything is shaped around the individual. The first century church knew nothing of this. Here's how that plays into Bible reading and Bible study. When Paul is writing to the church, he is talking to a community of people that leans on each other, not just for resources, but for strength when some are weak, for faith when some people's faith falters, for encouragement when some are falling away because of persecution. You get the idea? This community is strengthening to the others and to everybody in it. So when Paul is writing these fruits of the Spirit, he is talking about communities. And I think this actually helps paint a picture of, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, strife, wrath, seditions, heresies, envying, murders, drunkenness, reveling. They which do such things shall not inherit the kingdom of God. Again, I don't think he's thinking about individual by individual. I think he's talking about a community of people who behave this way versus the community of Jesus who behaves this way. I'm going to end my little tirade like this. We have, in our individualism, we have really begun to think that we are more self-sufficient than we are. And the technology is just so advanced that we might actually start to believe it. I don't need a church. You do. You do. I don't need friends. I don't need accountability partners. It's just me and my Bible, me and my Jesus. We go up on a mountain by ourselves. That's not how Christianity was designed to work. It's not. Saints, we can sit around all day and talk about how the home is supposed to work, how family is supposed to work, how society is supposed to work. But I'm telling you, how Christianity was designed to work was to be operated within and strengthened from a community. A community. So does that mean if I miss a Sunday, my faith falls apart? No, but it means that we weren't meant to ever go it alone.
Yeah.
Ever. We're supposed to lean on each other.
Right.
And if we show up and we pretend like everything's okay and we pretend like, it's not good for us because then we're robbing each other of the opportunity to practice what we're supposed to be able to practice. All this stuff in this book that we're supposed to do, it's supposed to start right here. This is where we're supposed to live it out. So I guess when we talk about the fruits of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, Paul is thinking about and writing to a community of Jesus followers here. Card-carrying Jesus followers in a community, talking about how to act among themselves first and foremost, and then how to act as lights in the world. So, I just wanted you to think about that. Clearly, I just got done with my book by Carl Trueman about the rise and triumph of the modern self. This idea of a person existing on an island, and it doesn't work. It doesn't. In fact, I think the longing for community is so great. You heard me mention the other day, we create micro communities just so we can belong somewhere. You see, want that togetherness. And saints, I think we would all agree on paper that the most important part of our lives is Jesus. But how does that actually play out when it comes to the communities to which we pay attention? In other words, I like football. You know me, I grew up playing video games, that's a community. Football, games, I don't know, can think of other communities. Maybe somebody likes fishing a lot. Maybe somebody likes history, right? These are communities. But if there's any community that's receiving more priority than the church, that's not a time for slapping on the wrist and saying bad. It is a time to say, maybe that's a picture of where our heart is, right? Is the community that has the hardest pull. I've seen Christians get, including myself at times, get more upset about the political scene, right? And what the other side of the aisle is doing than I do about anything in the Christian realm. And I say that my political community, my Republican community, is more important to me in practice, maybe not on paper, but in real life. My Republican community is more important to me than my faith community. If I give more money to the Republican Party, and I don't, I give them some time, but I don't give them a dime, you know what I mean? If I give more money to my Republican Party, I am saying with my actions which community I find most solidarity and support in. Right? And as Christians, we should be saying, no matter what our differences are here around this circle, we should find enough in common here to make this the most important community. And again, I'm not talking about attendance or tithe. I'm just talking about like our hearts, you know, our hearts. Anyways, we're talking about faith. I'm just going to leave right out of the gate and say, this faith, this is not believing without seeing. Be very clear about that. People say, oh, faith is when you don't have any evidence and you choose to believe. That's garbage.
That's hope.
Yeah. What do you that's blind faith, right?
Wish.
That's a wish. Yeah, a wish.
Desire.
I like wish. Because even hope, right, is usually based on something, I guess, but it might not be. I hope I get to stay up till midnight. I don't know who put that in your head, kid. You know what I mean? But a wish, right, a desire. Faith is not that. Faith is commitment. That's what the word faith means. Greek word pistis. It has to do with commitment, has to do with loyalty. So when he says gentleness, goodness, faith, he's not talking about how much you believe in something. He's talking about your commitment to something. You got that pulled up as far as the, pistis. And it has to do with persuasion, credence, conviction, reliance upon Christ, assurance. Let's see, conviction. A strong and welcome conviction that Jesus is the Messiah. These are very boilerplate. Fidelity, that's the word. Fidelity or faithfulness. When you think of the word fidelity, what do you guys think?
401k.
That's what I think. 401k.
No, I think of a
A
dog.
bank. What's that?
I think of a dog.
I like that. A dog.
I mean, if you have a dog, then you treat them well, then they love you, and, and they're very faithful, and they so look forward to when you come home or
Yeah.
whatever, and
It's huge.
I think about when I was growing up, we had a dog, well, we had several dogs, but, they protected our house, they protected our property,
Yeah.
and, and then you were there for them with the stupid Samoyed from, Kim knows what, Kim and I grew up in the same neighborhood, and there was a bunch of stupid Samoyeds that would come and attack your dog.
Samoyed dogs.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially our golden retriever, and our golden retriever was old, and he came and attacked him. And
Wow.
I was trying to break up the fight. I got somebody got a tooth in my leg and just ripped it open.
Ooh,
But I was
hopefully
like
you don't.
protecting my dog.
Yeah.
'Cause, but that's what I think of as for fidelity is like a dog.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Record players used to be.
High
one of their-
fidelity.
yeah, high
Oh,
fidelity.
high
I was gonna
fidelity.
say, yeah, we're, maybe a little different, hi-fi.
Let's unpack that.
Hi-fi.
Let's unpack that. High fidelity sound. Apple's now advertised with lossless hi-fi sound. If it applies to music, what does it mean in the music realm? Maybe something that's of top quality,
True to the original.
true to the original. Ooh, that's very good. That's very good. It's faithful to the original sound. In other words, I go to a concert and I hear Sia sing "I Want to Swing from the Chandelier." I don't know. it's a hard song to sing, I'm just saying, if you ever heard it, it's an incredibly hard song to sing. Trust me, ask the inside of my car. It's a very sad song, and actually one of the reasons I listen to it is because it's such a sad social commentary on a bleak outlook on life, but whatever. So she's singing this song, and then I go home and I say, all right, I'm gonna play this on iTunes over my speakers in my car, and it's not the same at all. Now, I can blame it on the hearing aids, but everybody else in the car agrees, this is not like it was in concert. Well, what's the difference? Something's lost in translation. Something's lost in a bad preservation. You've got to compress the sound in order to get it into the,
There's a whole set of tones that.
Yeah.
That box in your car is not gonna pick up.
Yep.
Your ears pick it up.
Yep.
Your ears can sense it. There's more
Yep.
to it than what you see.
So, Pastor Chad Faber in Bath, he plays Destiny. It's a video game where you run around, you're a spaceman using space powers. It's great.
Run that man.
Running that man on the screen. And so he and I were actually playing together over online, and I put on the headset, and Amber noted that I was, and this is a little silly, mock me all you want. No, you wouldn't mock me. Yeah, you will. You will. I was actually almost to the point of tears because I had the headphones on, and I haven't played with headphones. I don't really, and I put them on, and I could hear sound going right into my ear, and it was just such a high quality headset that the music right in my ears, I felt like it had layers and different dimensions, and it was a whole new world. I kept telling Amber, I'm like, do you hear like this all the time? And she's like, yeah, I hear all the sounds on it just like this. And I almost, my tears welled up, and then Amber starts getting all welled up, and she's looking at me, and it's like Helen Keller signing water for the first time, okay? So, and it was just a moment, and I was like, whoa, because I heard something for real. For real. It wasn't translated through my hearing aids, I heard something for real. And I was like, whoa, hi-fi sound. Let's bring that to what Paul is talking about. It is a fruit of the Spirit, for real. Faithfulness to Christ. We say, Christ is our master. Okay, how does that actually bear out in your life? Are you taking his name in vain, or are you taking it for real?
Right.
I don't want my wife to be like, I've taken on Michael Britt's name, my name is Amber Britt, and then go two-timing on me, right? Because then she's taken my name in vain. That's what that verse means. It has nothing to do with swearing. Somebody says, oh, God damn this or whatever, right? That has nothing to do with what the Ten Commandments talking about. That's not at all what it is. It's about assuming his name and bearing his name, but doing it in vain, emptily, vanity, dishonoring, right? So faithfulness is the opposite of taking his name in vain. It's taking his name and saying, I'm bearing this for real. High fidelity, high fidelity life, high fidelity life. Any thoughts on that? Can unpack, keep unpacking.
I had a thought, because I was thinking that, like when I do a piece of artwork, I sell a lot of cards from scans of my artwork. And people love my cards, but the thing is, when you look at my actual piece of art, and I usually do color pencil, it isn't just, it has more oomph to it, because it's the imperfections. It's the tiny different variations and shades and things like that, where I bore down heavier on some places than the other. And I think that's what makes us love other people, is because I don't know of anybody who's perfect that I want to love. I love people for their imperfections.
I like that.
And
Yeah.
I must say, because I'm a really newbie here, and I must give a little commercial, that this is the most fellowship-oriented community church I've ever been to.
That rocks.
And
That's
I've
good to
kind
hear.
of been I don't know what you call a church slut, I don't know. When Arnold and I were.
I understand what you mean.
I was raised in the Methodist church, and then he was in the military, and we'd go places, and of course, it was hard, because when we first got married, we were interracial, and a lot of awkward situations where
Sure.
you're like, okay, trying to fit into a congregation. So we visited a lot of churches, we attended some, we were involved with some, and I've never seen a church like this. And I think about coming back to Maine, and, ever since I was a little kid, I went to the Methodist church, and I just didn't get the love and fellowship and everything, and you know, it's pretty amazing, because these people have known me my whole life, since
Yeah.
I was a baby.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I gotta give you guys kudos, you're really doing something amazing here.
Well, right on.
And boy, my neighbor, I was talking to her, because I was supposed to take her out tomorrow, and she's sick. But I said, well, I gotta run off to Bible study, and she says, oh yeah, that new church you have, what denomination is it? I said, Baptist. She said, well, they're stuffy. And I'm like, oh, no, they're not. That's one reason I was late, because I had to stop and like, no, rah,
Yeah, I love it.
rah.
I love
So-
it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's cool.
dog barked. Rah.
And that's actually another awesome dimension of this is faithfulness to each other, right? I got called today at work. Somebody was, one of my employees was looking to get an apartment down in Florida, and the guy called me and said, what about this person? Well, I'm gonna tell the truth, I'm not gonna lie, but it was my pleasure to be able to say, hey, she's awesome. She shows up, she works hard, you know, I can't tell him, well, what's her wage information? I'm not gonna tell you that, man, you don't work for me, you know, but like, I can tell you she does a good job, I can tell you she shows up on time. And I was happy to be able to give a good report of somebody in my own work family, you know? So somebody says, what do you think about Toby? I should be the very first one, because this is our community. I should be the very first one to say, that guy rocks. And I said, well, doesn't he have any faults? I should be the first one to say, well, don't you have any faults? Or something smart, I don't know. But like, we're a community, we're a family. Like, what if somebody messed with your brother or your sister growing up? You say, I'm the only one who can mess with my brother or sister, you know?
That's right.
I'm the only one. Like, if somebody else messed with me, I would want Ray to be like, that's my preacher, I can give him a hard time, you can't. Now, he's like the last person who would, but I hope he would sometime, you know? Toby would be like, I just punched him the other day, you don't get to, I get to, you know? That'd be great, man, you know? It's like you say, well, he's weird, but he's all ours, you know?
Yeah.
But if somebody else said, well, he's kind of a freak, you'd be like, hey, you know? And I would wanna look out for you that way, right? And again, we don't have to be fluffy, we don't have to be like, actually, that person is the most talented, well, let's, you know, take it easy, right? We don't wanna, you know, but we can also say, that person's my brother, that person's my sister. And the Bible says, this is how the world will know that you're my disciples, by how you love one another. That's faithfulness.
I might be a little fluffy sometimes.
That's okay, fluffy's all right. Tobe?
We watched the last two episodes, or chosen last night, it was with feeding the 5,000, and then him walking on the water,
Yeah,
and telling Simon to get out of the boat, keep your eyes on me. Well, they showed him walking, and he started to walk, and then he started looking around, and he started to sink.
yeah, yeah,
And he says, help me, and of course Jesus put his hand in the water and pulled him out.
yeah,
And he said, why did you take your eyes off me? And he was upset with him, I don't know if this is true, but I guess his wife locked a baby, whatever, it might have been drama.
no, it's good.
But he was basically saying, why did you do this? I questioned him why this happened, and he goes, because I want to see how you react to the hard times too. And see if you keep your faith in me, and know that I will help you through it.
Yep,
But you have to keep your faith in me, so you, and even one of the other, you know, was told Simon, because he was all upset, he goes, he told us we're gonna have hard times, it isn't gonna be a perfect life.
yep,
Things are gonna go wrong, whatever, he saved this person, he did that for this person, he's healing strangers, and my wife, you know, he was just upset.
Thank you for ruining the last episode for me.
don't worry about it.
Spoiler.
You already know all that.
Right.
Not just watching yet.
I don't want to.
So anyways, that's,
No,
I
that's
think that's
huge.
the perfect example of keeping your faith in God. There's gonna be hard
Yeah,
times,
that's awesome.
but he wants to see how you react to it.
Somebody posted online, well, it was really snarky, like, oh, come on, dude. You know, this guy, the guy who said it's hit or miss, he's awesome, he's a great pastor, great dude, but he's still kind of in the old guard, so we'll still say stuff that's kind of off the wall sometimes, and this is one of them. He was like, well, they're not spiritual enough to read the book, but they'll watch the movie. What does that say about our society? And I'm like, that we're a visually oriented society, and I'm really glad that they have like a visual Bible that they get to watch the Gospels play out in front of them. Like, that could speak volumes more than reading it ever could for a ton of people. Like, this is a gift. Maybe that's what it says about our society. I don't know, man. Like, hey, and watch. See how I came to the defense of The Chosen? Why? Because that's part of my community. I've never seen it, but I'm standing up to defend it because people I know and love watch it, and because it's part of my community. We do this all the time, guys. We do this all the time. It's a heuristic. It's built. It's a mental channel. It's built right into our minds. We do it automatically. And so
Well,
the,
I mean, I
yeah.
can read the Bible,
yeah,
but if I watch The Chosen, I get weepy sometimes.
Yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and
Oh, yeah.
I'm really, really
They-
happy.
Yeah.
They
And,
actually-
you know, I don't get that from, sorry, from reading the Bible.
hey, that honesty is welcome here. We need to talk like that.
They
That's
actually had
real.
a focus group, they invited these 9 people in to watch the movie that some of them believed in God, some didn't, some
Yep.
all different backgrounds. Exactly the same thing, they started to cry because they didn't realize how God actually was, they just heard these stories.
Yep.
And he was vengeful, and they watched it, and all of them were like crying, and like, oh my God, I did not realize it was like that, and then
Yep.
it was really cool, because these kids didn't even, one of them was turned, they said, "Well, we was Catholic, I ran away from it, I was meant to go, I had to go to church," and then when they saw it, they were just like, to see it,
Yep, yep.
they were like, wow, he really is a loving, it's not just about
And,
punishing
and
people.
this is really cool too, because a lot of times the movie adaptations is not as good as the book. Well, hold on a
It's
second.
pretty good.
I would say that, and again, having not seen it, but knowing what I know about it, I do know a lot about it, even if I haven't watched the episodes fully. I can tell you that, I'm gonna give a proposition. What if you could tell the stories of the gospel in such a way that incorporates the context and surrounding time that we don't have in the pages of our Bible? But when they tell the story, it folds that in. Is it possible that we could actually have a fuller understanding of the Bible from watching something like The Chosen? I submit to you that we absolutely can. You say, I don't believe it. Well, then don't ever listen to preaching, because that's what they're doing. They're just helping you understand the context, and then they're giving application. That's what The Chosen's doing. It's a beautiful, and one of the reasons why we react, like when people watch Passion of the Christ, they must have read the crucifixion story 100 times, but when you see Jesus, your body is meant to respond to what you see more than what you read. That's just a fact, that's just how it is. Or for me, when I hear, a big one for me is listening. This is why in scripture, this is why in church history, people recite the creeds together as a community, because let's say somebody's saying, we believe in this, we believe in this, we believe in this. One person might have a little bit of reservation about one part of the creed. They say, oh boy, I'm struggling with the idea of the virgin birth, I don't really know. But then they hear 500 other people of all different walks of life and all different levels of intellect affirm that gives them some strength. Does that make sense? Anyways, so people say, so hearing the creed is good, but in the scriptures, they would read the scriptures out loud, and people would sit and listen, and they would meditate.
That's how it's
and-
designed.
What's that?
That's how it's designed.
That's how it's designed. That's literally how it's
They
designed.
show that in The Chosen, that they all get together. then
Yeah, yeah. The script, and look, I'm glad we have our Bibles, but individualism has put a pox upon the Bible as well. Because everybody's got the Bible and they go, oh man, I'm gonna go start a church based on what I got out of this. Scripture is not about what you get out of it or what it means to you, it's about what it's actually saying. And the problem is that when we read sometime, like I've got notes all through, look at the margin of my Bible right here. There's just as many notes in the margins as there are in the actual pages. Because it's what I've heard, it's the baggage I've attached, and so just hearing it taught by a rabbi, particularly Rabbi Jesus in his day, you hear it and you're like, oh, this is meaningful, wow, this is great. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall during his Sermon on the Mount. And the Sermon on the Mount, by the way, is basically a recap of what Jesus taught throughout his entire ministry. It wasn't just a sermon he preached one time. That was what he taught everywhere. He turned everything upside down. And so, and this is what I was going to mention when I talked about how, is it possible that The Chosen is it possible that The Chosen is a high fidelity version of the gospel in some areas? Yeah.
Because you can put yourself there.
Yeah.
Whereas the Bible is formal and it's got that space, it's like my cards, it's got that space. Whereas with The Chosen, or even if you were, if you could go back in time and you could actually be there,
Right.
that'd be the real
Right,
thing,
right.
And you could smell it and you could
Yeah.
sense it and
Yeah.
everything. But I think that The Chosen's the next best thing,
And-
because you can really think, why would I be like if I
Right.
were there?
And I want to be very careful not to say that the Chosen improves on the Bible. No.
No.
But what is really cool is that it gives us a window to see aspects of it that we hadn't seen before. It rotates the diamond, so we can see a new facet.
He says that too, he doesn't say he's trying to improve the Bible, he just said he's trying to give people a picture of what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, which is,
Personal side of Jesus and all that, that's all he's saying.
and every time, like for instance, when Jesus was cursing the fig tree outside of Bethphage, well, Bethphage means the house of the early figs. And knowing that, you go, oh, aha. Well, that's a high fidelity understanding of what Jesus was doing. It is a more faithful approach. It is closer to the original than we read in our Bibles. We go, why did he curse the fig tree? Everybody around him would have known why. And so when we understand why, we go, and we get 1 inch closer to the truth, which is what faithfulness is. Faith is truth. Kim?
Well, you've told us many times when you're reading from the Bible, picture this like a movie in your
Yes,
mind,
yes,
you know?
yes.
Make it real.
Yes, you gotta watch the movie. You have to, because and I don't know if it's our community, not church community, but our societal community. I don't know if it's the time in which we live. It's probably a combination of all kinds of things. But print on paper has, as a medium, been quite diminished in our society. I really want to write a book. Before I ever did that, I do podcasts, because people are going to listen to a podcast on the way to work much more likely than to pick up a book. You say, I wish it weren't so. Sorry, that's just the way it is. So what is the Bible? What is the gospel going to look like in the next 2,000 years? You know, should the Lord not return? You know what I'm saying? Like, people say, well, we're still going to have. Of course, we're still going to have this. Of course we are. Of course we are. But how is it going to be presented? Are we going to get back to reading it? Are we going to get back to confessing creeds together? What are we going to? You know what I mean? Look at the Lord's Supper and look at baptism. You can't do either one of those things alone. Well, I could find a way to do it alone. Okay, I guess if you slip in your tub, you can accidentally baptize yourself. But here's the idea.
Roger Williams baptized himself.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, because he didn't have anybody to baptize him when he came to the state side. Yeah, when he came to the state. So the point is, you could probably get a couple of matzos and your Welch's from your fridge and be like, hey, I want communion. I'm not saying that'd be sinful, but the whole point is they're oriented to be done as a community. We confess as a community. When we baptize, the Ethiopian eunuch who got baptized, he said, here's water. What's stopping me from being baptized? He wanted to be initiated as a Christian right away. That's awesome. But in the early church, they were baptized around people, and they said baptismal creed at 16. It talks about a baptismal creed. But anyways, not Acts 16, Romans 10. Yes, Romans 10. But anyways, I digress. Those things are community activities. And so I'm twisting community and faith together, but that's really what it is the stronger the community is, the stronger our community faith is. And the stronger our faith as a community is, the stronger our community will grow. I don't want to be a part of a community that doesn't believe anything, doesn't stand for anything, and falls for anything. It's garbage. It's a garbage community. And that's why our community is told that the fruits of the Spirit are faith. And I want to say one more thing, and then I'm going to try to hush. Ephesians 5:1 says, be therefore followers of God as dear children. The word followers is tricky there because it's in most modern translations it's translated as imitators, because the Greek word for follower is mimeo, mimeto, and it has to do with mimic. You're mimicking someone. So think, if you're going to use follower, you got to think about Peter Pan and the Lost Boys. We're following the leader, the leader, the leader. You guys remember the song? Come on. Have you been deprived? Your homework. Go watch Peter the Pan. What in the world is that? Winnie Pooh and Peter the Pan. Anyway, but following the leader, you do what the leader does. I used to, I wanted to join the military the best I could do with a little kids Marine Academy boot camp. And in it, we marched and left, right, left. There's a cadence there. And you're marching together. So our community leader is Jesus, and he is leading, and we're supposed to be faithful to him. What does that mean? Everybody, are you faithful to Jesus? What does that even mean? That's another buzzword that Christianity has just disabused and abused. And what does it mean to be faithful to Jesus? Think of it this way. Do you mimic him?
Kind of makes me think of like football. You think about like defensive, offensive line, how faithful the offense and the quarterback, the relationship that they have, because if your offense don't block for you,
Yeah.
then you're done.
Mm-hmm.
So the offense is very faithful to their quarterback, or else their quarterback has no time to do anything.
That's a good point. So you have an offensive line that blocks and protects the quarterback. You have your wide receivers, tight ends who run out to catch, right? And you got other people who set up screens. You got your fullback, halfback, you got your edge. Everybody plays a different role, but they're all taking orders from the same guy. Who's taking orders from the same guy? There's a great example. We take orders from Jesus, and in that beautiful picture of subservience, he said he takes orders from God, the Father. You know, kind of cool that way, right? So we follow Jesus in that way. So what did it mean to be faithful to Jesus? What did it mean for one of the fruits of the Spirit to be faith? Again, that's not about, oh, I'm full of faith. If that was if feelings were faith, if that warm, fuzzy feeling you got when you're pretty sure you're right about something is faith, then that can't be what this is talking about. This is talking about a commitment, a mimicking of Jesus Christ among people in our community. So when one of us says, I'm hungry, we give food. Not, I'm snackish, right? If you're snackish, you can get your own food. No, I'm just teasing. I'll give you my food. But if you're truly hungry, I need to feed you. People say, well, there's starving children in Zambia. Listen, I lived in Zambia. I've seen them. What do they need? They need the gospel. Well, they need food. Right. The gospel comes before the giving of guys, don't you think there's food available for people in Zambia? Yes. They were worried that overpopulation would lead to fewer resources, but with population surges, I just listened to the food availability has increased exponentially. The cost of food, I know lately inflation is disgusting and sick and sad and awful, but if you look from the 1920s till now, the cost of food has decreased by 97 to 98% per dollar. You say, what do you mean? Literally, what I mean is, it is so much easier to buy food now. So isn't there enough food to go around? Yes, but why aren't they getting it? Because we need the gospel.
Corruption.
Correct. It's exactly right, Kim. There's corruption, there's greed. The trickle-down effect was a really optimistic thing. It's not happening. I'm sorry, guys, it's not. Can it happen? Yeah, I'm not calling the Gipper wrong. I'm just saying, can it happen? Sure, but is it happening? No, the rich are getting richer. And they say, well, I'm going to give away all my money. Yeah, to charities that you select that are research, let's solve the real problem, And I guess my point is what the people who are starving physically need is the church. It's communities of Jesus followers. What the earthquake relief people need is the church. Number one, to say, hey, when we're building our structures, we need to build them carefully. I just expressed this today, and this is difficult, and I don't mean to. When God said to build your roofs, put a railing around the top, right? Because he knew that disasters would happen, right? But in places that are so poverty-stricken, because there is no gospel, there is no wealth, there is corruption, these houses in places are falling apart during earthquakes instead of being able to stand. I'm not saying all of it could have been prevented, but I am saying that a lot of it could have been prevented if the gospel takes hold and people are in a community sharing and wealth is able to spread. And I'm not preaching the values of capitalism, I'm preaching the values of what a community looks like when people share and develop ideas and there's no corruption and there's no greed and there's no corporate filth. It's just flourishing. I don't think we'd see a lot of the pain and poverty in the world. In fact, I'm certain we wouldn't. So everything from rails on the top of your house to food when you're starving, the gospel is the answer. And how is it the answer? Only when churches are faithful to live like Jesus lived will we ever be the answer for each other or anyone else. So when the fruits of the Spirit says faith, it's not talking about a halo and you pray with your hands together like the little angels in the cartoons do. That's not what faith is. And faith isn't about how hard you believe something. Guys, there's days when you and I might believe something a lot more than other days. There's days when the gospel story, it just resonates with me, and there's days that it doesn't. But on those bad days and on those good days alike, I still have a responsibility to love God and love neighbor because that's what the gospel does. The gospel isn't a proposition to be accepted. It's a truth to be lived out. And that's what it means when we say love, gentleness, goodness, faith. Faith is how we treat each other because we're faithful to Jesus who treated other people right. How we treat other people in our church, how we treat people in our community, and how we treat people outside of our community. And you know what happens when you treat people right outside of your community? They want to join your community. Mm-hmm. Anyways, I said I was done.
Can I go back to the film?
You go back wherever you want.
I'll read it first. But what an eye-opener was for me at the movies.
Yeah.
Because I understand it here, but when I saw it there, it just came alive. It just came alive.
I love it.
This is Philip. find this, Nathanael says unto him, we have found him, of whom Moses and the law and the prophets did write, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael said unto him, can there any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip said unto him, come and see. And Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said unto him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. Nathanael said unto him, whence knowest thou me? Jesus answered and said unto him, before Philip called thee, when thou wast under the fig tree, I saw thee. Nathanael answered and says unto him, Rabbi, thou art the Son of God. Thou art the King of Israel.
Yeah.
Again, it's eye-opener.
Yeah.
But in the film, I remember this. you remember this? It's like, wow. Nathaniel was supposed to be an architect in the film. He's an architect, the only Jew architect, and his building collapsed and they get fired, and he's underneath the tree, crying to God, and like, God, why this happened, and this and that, you know, I thought you were, he's putting ashes all over his head and everything else. He's all by himself, out in the boonies. Nothing to do with Jesus.
Yeah.
And then Philip finds him
Yeah.
and said, man, we gotta, I don't want to, and he talks him into it. Come on,
Sure.
man. That's why he said, anything good coming out of Bethlehem?
Right.
Out of Bethlehem? So when he sees him and he says that to him, Philip like, he's like, how did you know I was underneath the tree crying?
That's awesome.
It's like, oh, he was,
Yeah.
again, to me, he was just like, he's underneath the tree over there.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
saw
yeah,
him.
yeah.
He just doesn't come alive.
Right.
When the film did it, it was like, whoa.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
just, it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
The way they did it, it was perfect. I didn't say he was, I'm not saying it was like that.
Sure.
But the way they
Yeah.
produced it, it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
to a T.
I was just gonna say, think about communication,
Mm-hmm.
and the majority of communication is unspoken words. And so it's like the scenes, the energy, the facial expressions, all those things are like 97% of communication. So when you have the words all your life,
Sure.
and you know the stories, but then you see,
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you so much, like, so much, I'm like, I see everything in the Bible differently.
Yeah.
Because you see it and you can feel it so much differently than if you just read the words.
Yep. Yep.
Actually, one of the scenes that the couple of the people, the girls, was when he first met Mary.
Mm.
And she was possessed or whatever, and she was called Lilith or whatever. And he actually touched her hand, not to drink, she was gonna drink and all this stuff, and he touched her hand, that's not for you. And she ran off,
Ah.
and he followed her, she's running down the little, whatever, in the alley, and he opens the door and he just goes, Mary, Mary of Magdalene, or whatever, Mary.
Yeah.
And she just stopped
Mm.
and just went, like, he called me by my name.
Yeah.
And the girl said, one of the girls was just crying, I mean, she was just, she goes, that made it real to me, that he saw the real person.
Yeah.
He didn't see the person that had done all this horrible stuff, he saw the real person.
Yeah.
And it really got to her. That
That's
he-
awesome.
You know, he saw her for who she was, not for what she had done.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's why a lot of churches like put on dramas around Easter time, Christmas time, because it helps kind of bring these things into a reality that's in front of you. This is a great segue into the Bible translation topic, by the way. Somebody might say, well, I'm a King James guy because, you know, textual reasons or whatever. Fine, I respect that. But I think a lot of people are missing out on some fidelity, because think of the Chosen like reading a different Bible translation. It just doesn't say the same stuff the same way. But what it's doing is turning the diamond for you, turning the diamond for you. That's why when I read the Bible, I read from like 5 or 6 different translations. It's not work for me any more than it's work to turn a diamond. I just get to see different aspects and different angles. And we say, that sounds like study. I mean,
That's what he wants us to do.
when I got my AR-15 that's now on the bottom of Sebago Lake, I don't have it.
Shame.
No, that one we lost in the ocean.
Oh, yeah, ocean, not Sebago Lake. It was way out at sea. We were lobster fishing, I think.
Yes.
But one of the lobsters came out and he was like, and I was like, no, and it was,
Protect ourselves, we were shooting at it.
right.
fell
And
over.
then all of our guns just went overboard. It was crazy. Weird. Not all the receipts and the ammunition. Anyways,
This
when I
is
first-
great.
Fairy tale to go something else.
that's not a faithful story. No, but like when I first got my AR-15, you know what I did? I turned it over and I looked at the other side. I looked at the bottom. I emptied the mag, you know, I pulled out the mag, right? And then I pulled the bolt back and I looked down the barrel from the right direction, amen? Yeah. Why? I'm looking at every part of it because it's my AR-15. I like it. I've still never fired it. I I just don't have, I'm sorry, we gotta go shooting. It'll be, oh, so fun. But like,
Anyway.
I just really enjoyed looking at it. And kids do that too, right? Christmas time, you know, they get their present, and they just wanna look at it and just look at it. Maybe
And then
before
play
they,
with the box.
and then play with the box, yeah, right? What's that?
But sometimes you just have to look at it.
Sometime you just gotta look at it.
Just
Well,
look
just
at
look at it. It's a video skit on YouTube.
Well, let's take that to faith,
Yeah.
because I mean, that's what we're supposed to be talking about tonight.
Right.
So we'll segue everything said. You said it was a commitment. We've always taught it as a foundational belief.
And it is that too,
Well, if we
right?
put all that together, we understand it's a commitment based upon a belief, based upon a foundation of truth. It can't just be one of those things. So when we look at the story of Nathaniel, or we look at, you know, the walking on the water, or we look at the resurrection story, we don't just believe, or we don't just have the truth, and we don't just stay faithful to it. It's got to have all aspects of those to be real, true faith. And I mean, that's why baptism, up until, you know, like 14 minutes ago, was a very important aspect of one's conversion, because it was truth that enacted a belief which got put into practice to be, you know what I mean? So while we don't work to be saved, that's why baptism was so important, because it was an outward showing of what we say happened to us on the inside. And that's why when you read the Bible accounts about baptism, about people's conversion, it always included baptism, simply because that was such a foundational thing to establish your faith, that I'm going to make the outward commitment by showing to my Jewish family that I'm going to follow that Jesus, you know, from Nazareth guy, you know, and to the point where you're out of the synagogue, you're hated by your family, you're no longer a son. And it was an outward showing of what you believe, of what you heard, saw, read. And so when we look at faith, when we look at the Holy Spirit's fruit in our life of having this commitment, this belief, because it's this foundational thing based upon truth. And it's not just, that's why it's so important that we study, it's so important that we read, it's so important that we act our faith out, because that is faith. It's not just one part or another, it's all of it.
Yeah.
And that's why, you know, my favorite of the Chosen was, my mind just went completely blank, Nicodemus and his conversion. When you actually saw them two having the conversation, they were actually spot on with the scripture, how they were talking back and forth. And I was just like, that's stinking cool. Because it brings a visual representation of what we've read all these years.
I felt so bad for him that when he wanted to go, and he's standing around the corner.
That's
Remember that scene? He wanted to follow Jesus, he wanted to follow him so bad, and he just,
But he had another purpose.
he had another purpose, right?
Oh, he's gonna get another purpose.
It was just one of the, he just was crying, because he's like, he really wanted to follow him, you know? But he knew he had something else he had to do.
But isn't that faith?
Yeah. I just finished the book. It was a very short book. It was only 125 pages. I just didn't, just a couple days. It's very
Sort of
short.
overnight.
It's really short. It's
10 minutes.
He looked at it.
no,
He
no,
opened it
no.
up.
That's what he did.
It's called The Doubter's Creed by Randall Rouser. Randall's a little bit more of a progressive Christian. He identifies as a progressive Christian, but and so he's not where we'd be on a few issues, but he affirms the Apostles' Creed. And it's called How to Be a Christian When You Can't Believe It's True. And you say, oh, Britt, what are you wrestling with? Well, I'm always wrestling with things, and I wouldn't say I can't believe it's true, but as someone who's very skeptical, there's a lot of the elements of the Christian story that I think, man, it takes a little bit more. I feel like sometimes I have to suspend my rationality to believe certain things. But then again, I have to suspend my rationality to believe we went to the moon. And I know not all of you believe we did, that's fine. But that's hard for me to believe, but it happened, you know, at least I believe it did. That's okay if it didn't. But anyway, this book, he talks about how doubters and skeptics are actually just as much a gift to the church because they're exhibiting a faith that goes against the current of feeling sometimes. Does that make sense? Thomas, right? Faith doesn't always go with the current of how you're feeling. Faith sometimes goes against the current of how you're feeling. I'm glad that my religious upbringing in some parts of it crumbled because I feel like that gave me the opportunity to get closer to the real thing. Truth doesn't change. Our understanding of the truth often changes. And that's where as I studied some of these things in scripture and I'm like, oh, that's what that meant. Oh, it didn't play out quite that way. Oh, that's what, the truth isn't changing. My understanding of it is. My understanding of certain literary genres in the Bible. I go, oh, wow. We were just talking about the serpent in the garden, right? And you know, how that plays out in reality. What, you know what I mean? Different things. And you say, well, I was so asleep. I was falling
Well,
asleep.
the way that I was trying to like describe it, because I didn't know what I was talking about.
You were asking a simple question and I was given a much too
Well, half of it I
complicated.
didn't understand anyway. So honestly, I didn't really quite understand what I was even trying to ask.
I got you.
But I knew that I would eventually hear, like, I'd learn something, because you were gonna answer the question.
Oh, you're
even
getting a
if you were
doctoral
just-
dissertation.
No,
He was
that's
gonna
why,
say something.
that's why I point people to the Bible Project. They can say it in such a great way.
Well, that's what I was
But-
listening to. That's
know,
why I
I
came
know.
to you.
And then I said.
Because I didn't
listen
understand after listening to the
Listen to
Bible
Tim
Project.
Mackey's Exploring My Strange Bible. That's like a primer to his later work in the Bible Project. It's great.
I
But
sent Michael a heartfelt message. I think it was like two paragraphs long. But I was telling him about how like thankful that I am to be able to move here and live under the roof here and have this church. Because I think personally growing up, believing I'm a Christian, like if someone would have asked me, are you a Christian? I would have been like, yeah, like I believe there's a God, but I didn't have the knowledge because I wanted to be a Christian. I want to believe in God. I want to be able to say that I know God or whatever. But I think that growing up in a Free Will Baptist church all the Free Will Baptist churches that I grew up in, I had a really hard time grasping what I was supposed to learn. Because they didn't teach the way that Michael does. They didn't actually, I don't feel like they were really teaching anyway. They would just read out of the Bible and expect me to be able to understand what they're saying. And we don't talk that way. So I don't even know what that word you even, like, I didn't even know the word pray meant ask until Michael taught me that. Like, there's a lot of things that I've learned just from being here. And I think that this church and going to this church has brought me closer to God because I'm able to understand because the way that he is able to describe it and teach it. Like a lot of people I've tried to talk to that back home or that I'm around, I talk about him a lot. And I'm like, he's very intelligent in the way that he can describe these things.
well, and
And they're like, oh, well, I don't need to go to a church where somebody has went to a college to be a preacher. And I'm like, that's not what I
I had
mean.
to unlearn everything from college, man.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not what I mean by that. But what I mean is he's intelligent and he knows what he's reading and he can like describe it
Well,
in a
see-
way that I can understand it.
And that's why I'm really thankful for
How much did you pay him?
so much. So that's why I'm really thankful for Kev, actually, because Kev has a totally different communication style than I do. And I know that either in pastoring or in preaching, both, either in this sense, meaning both, not either or, but in pastoring and in preaching, in pastoring separated from preaching, I mean counseling, confronting people. We just had a mild confrontation with somebody who was listening to me just fine, but then when he said like one thing, oh, I can't stay mad at you. Yeah,
Livable.
Apparently.
Isn't it like thank heaven for Kevin, isn't that the?
yeah, that's the new church motto. I'm
No,
gonna put it on the
the
sign.
new one
I
is
feel like
thank
it's
him
not-
for Kim.
Thank him for Kim, yeah, yeah. But
That's
like,
2023.
You know, and honestly, I do thank heaven for Kevin, because I think there's like a well-roundedness, because let's face it, guys, I have morphed into the academic nerd like you wouldn't believe, and it's getting worse, not better. And he's no less smart, but intelligence is not a monolith, right? You can be really bright in one area, communicate really well, and be super dumb in other areas, right? So intelligence is not a monolith. So that's another really important thing about community, is that's how we complete each other, right? Because a lot of times we can read the Bible and come away with an understanding that, I had somebody come up to me a few years ago, and he said, well, the Ancient of Days in the scripture is Satan. I said, well, no, it's God, right? And we went through the scriptures, you know, went out for breakfast, went through the scriptures, showed where the Ancient of Days. But that's why we need community, because we can come away with just really quick, easy misunderstandings.
Yeah.
And the community is here to say, actually, that I see where you're at, I see where you're coming from, I sympathize with you, I love you to death, I don't look down on you, but this is what the truth is, because the truth doesn't change. And that fruit of the Spirit, faith, means that we center on the truth, no matter what else around us is changing, you know. Christianity may look a little different in the generations after us, just like it looks different now than it did in the early church. But there are things that will always remain. The truth, baptism, communion, these are ordinances, these are things that will always be the same, no matter which denominational tradition. You're gonna have those three things. You're gonna have the gospel, and you're gonna have the Apostles' Creed. The Apostles' Creed is very simple. I don't have it memorized yet, but you can better believe we're gonna be reciting it here a time or two going forward. It's good for the church to do recitings together. But it's very simple. We believe in God the Father, creator of all. We believe in the Son. We believe in the Holy Spirit. We believe in the virgin birth. We believe in his death. We believe in his resurrection. We believe in one holy Catholic Church. Catholic, not meaning Roman Catholic. It existed
I
long
know, because
before the
when
Roman
people
Catholic.
recite that, they say Catholic, and everybody's voice goes up, yeah.
One holy
Church.
church. No, but one holy Catholic Church means one institutional church worldwide. We have local churches, just like McDonald's. There's McDonald's, and then there's individual McDonald's, just like the church, okay? The forgiveness of sins and the resurrection to life everlasting. It doesn't get into the doctrinal weeds. It doesn't go into like confessions and Westminster this and Heidelberg Catechism that. It's straightforward, it's biblical teaching. That won't change, the ordinances won't change. No matter what changes, that won't change. Why? Because the truth doesn't change. So our job as Christians, as we embrace this fruit of the Spirit, as we walk closer to God, as we grow closer to him, we're gonna be more like him. And that means we're gonna love the truth. We're gonna love it so much that we're not gonna be able to hate people enough to allow them to live in it while approving of it, right? Well, I think that 2 + 2 is 5. I'm not gonna say anything, actually, it's gonna really bother me if I don't, right? Kind of thing, you know? There's always a fine line. I know when to speak up, when to sit down, I get it. But in a community, we must never, ever be afraid to make sure the truth is front and center no matter what. You know, and a lot of times I have to say it, I'm so sorry, but a lot of times we get very strong opinions about things and we say, this is the truth. Let's use that word truth for things that are absolutely true.
Like how amazing Kevin is.
Right, that's a clear truth, you see.
That's in the Apostles' Creed.
Well, it's so handy, it's so handy when people have good names. I mean, my name rhymes with peril. I mean, maybe that's the,
No, when you start your clothing line, it's gonna be Cheryl Apparel, and you
No,
can't do it, I
actually-
just trademarked it, so.
So
my
there.
clothing line wasn't that, and I wish I named it that.
Come on, you really had a clothing line?
Yeah, because I had an Etsy shop and I sold stuff, and it's
I knew you were
Cheryl
artist,
Labath
but-
Art and Design, so
Oh.
that was boring. I wish I had
Yeah,
that.
I
Gee.
feel like Cheryl Apparel, you might be a magnate, a multi.
I can go back, yeah.
All right, Saints, I love you. Oh, it's only 7:02. I felt like we went longer. Anybody else have anything? All right.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
has anybody here watched the Uncle Tom 1 or 2 movies? They're just amazing because, the first one, we just watched the second one last night. The first one, they're talking about, black people in America and how if you're a Republican, then you're like invisible and stuff. And how, you know, it was a good movie, but the second one, just Arnold and I sat there and I'm like, my mouth's hanging open half the time, because basically I would like to maybe, as a church group sometime, watch it. And, because you don't want children, there's some swearing and there's Black Lives Matter crap and stuff like that.
Sure.
But the overarching theme of this is, you look at the black community, because it's a smaller community. They were a community of faith. When they became freed, they became so successful and everything. And then they started being infiltrated by Marxists. And when they lost their faith, they lost everything. And they show the difference.
Wow.
And they show all these lies and stuff. But the big thing is and this is what they want to do with the rest of America. And when you look at this and you see how these Marxists were behind the civil rights movement, and they have Martin Luther King Jr. saying these speeches that are socialist, and I just about fell off my chair.
How about that?
You know, and it's just a really amazing thing, but it's a really good theme that if you lose your faith, you still believe in something. And what you believe in is
Yes.
probably evil.
Wow, wow. That's I'll have to catch that. Live streamers, love you.